The West Ham Massive are pleased to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham fans and friends inspired by the work of other football food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations for a Newham Food Bank in Beckton, who supplies 7 distribution centres in the borough 7 days a week and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thanks for your support. Come on, you Irons. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the West Ham Massive. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to implore you to please don't forget to like, comment on and share this stream to your social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure you hit the bell icon for alerts on new content and don't forget to click all. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much indeed for your support in this particular endeavour. Little bit of housekeeping. If adult language offends you guys, you might want to go somewhere else because there's a fair chance you might hear a little bit of the old English vernacular Saxon language popping out of us every now and again. We are here to discuss the UEFA Europa League Group A, match day 4 of 6 at the London Stadium tomorrow evening, where West Ham United clash with the Greek juggernaut that is Olympiacos. And joining me to discuss it is my good friend, Irish Tommy. How are you, sir?
Very well, my friend. Very well. Good to see you.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise. So, let's get down to it. So, the Olympiacos match obviously comes off of the back of the Brentford game. We'll just touch on your thoughts on the Brentford game just real quick, Tom, because obviously you and I haven't caught up since that unfolded. What were your thoughts on the Brentford game?
Very disappointed, obviously. Not a great performance. Not the result we were looking for. Obviously, look, it was going to be difficult with Paqueta and Alvarez out. Yeah, I love this kit, to be honest. Love this shit.
You know what? That's the first kit that my dad ever got me when I was a kid.
Yeah?
Yeah. I got a photograph of me and my brother. I don't know what beach we was on. It was somewhere in Spain. And I've got that top, obviously not that top on, but a very, the original one from like the 70s and 80s. It was, and somewhere there's a photograph of me and my younger brother. I'm sort of like holding a bottle of Coca-Cola. I think it was Salou in Spain where I was at the time. So, yeah, I've got that kit. I love it. A little bit of nostalgia.
Yeah, it's definitely one of our better ones. But that's my thing now. I'm going to try and collect as many of the kind of retro kits as I can. I got this actually in the stadium store when I was over for the Newcastle game. So I'll try and I've got like my favorite kit ever is the 86-87 season. The pinstripe.
Yeah.
So I've got the home one. So I'm just trying to source the away one now. They're not that easy to get, some of them. But yeah, that's the plan, is to just have a really, really good collection of retro kits. So I'm on my way already. I've got some. I've got the 1958 with the 6 on the back. That was the year, of course, Bobby Moore made his debut.
It was
his debut season wearing the number 6. So I've got that one. I've got the 1980 FA Cup final one. I got this one. I've got the 86 home. So I've just got to kind of keep going with it now and hopefully have a very nice collection at the end of it.
Yeah, I've got a nice little collection upstairs as well. We'll have to compare one day, but we won't bore the people that are at home with that tomfoolery. We'll do that on another time.
Yeah.
So
sorry, just sidetracked there with the comment, but
no, that's cool.
Yeah, the Brentford game I thought was really, really disappointing. particularly as we were doing all right for a while. Having gone behind, you're thinking, "Oh crap, here we go," and then to get ourselves back into the lead, obviously an amazing goal from Kudus. What a finish that was! He's a brilliant footballer. So you're thinking, things are looking up here, but the second half just wasn't good enough. It really wasn't. I mean, we can make excuses about Paqueta and Alvarez being out and all that, but they had a number of players missing as well. And they just completely outplayed us, it has to be said. 2-1, if anything, was maybe a little flattering to us. I thought we were comprehensively beaten, really, on the pitch. The substitutions from Moyes made absolutely no sense, didn't help us whatsoever.
Nope.
You're trying to, with the bit of possession that you can get, you're trying to see if you can hit them on the counter. So, Benny's not the fastest in the world. So you take him off and replace him with someone who's even slower and isn't a left winger in Fornells. I just will never understand that. And then, Danny Ings, who we've seen by now, is completely and utterly ineffective, especially so when you're trying to counterattack. Danny Ings, you have a chance of Danny Ings maybe doing something if you're playing a team that's sitting back against you and employing a low block and saying, right, come and see if you can score. At least then you can get numbers in and around him, and he can operate in and around that penalty area where he's at least a good player. But just baffling stuff. Another really poor performance, and just heaps more pressure on David Moyes.
Yeah, and obviously, whilst that was all going on, Divin Mubama was sat on the bench twiddling his thumbs and didn't get a look in again. But there you go. Right, let's move off of these. Just having a little look at the comments that are coming in. Business attire, I don't know. It's smart casual, I think, is the terminology. But yeah, Larry agrees. He says the defense was dreadful. Too many bad performances, including the manager, says Mark. So there's a couple of comments that largely are agreeing with yourself, Tommy. And to be honest with you, it's very difficult to do so with regret. I'd love to be able to mount a case for the defence, as it were. But we were just poor. And I agree with you. I said it. I think we were lucky to get away with a 3-2 defeat, if I'm being brutally honest. But okay, let's park the talk about matters in the past. Let's talk about the future. Now, the questions that I've got up are my standard preview questions, and I appreciate that this might be a rather difficult question for you to answer, in a sort of like a knowledgeable sort of way, in the sense that you're not going to be...
You're testing my blagging skills.
Yeah, I mean, let's just sort of like, you can probably only base it on what you look at as far as the league table is concerned when you go on to the internet, and obviously on the basis of the game that took place a couple of weeks ago against the same opposition, where we obviously came unstuck by a scoreline of 2-1. And I thought we were largely poor until the last 10 minutes, if I'm being brutally honest. But on the basis of what you've seen, on the basis of any research that you might have done latterly, what are your thoughts on Olympiacos?
Yeah, look, I thought they were a decent side, but I would have expected them to be. I didn't expect an easy game out there in Athens, particularly as they were in a desperate situation. A loss in that game, would have been really, really damaging to them. They had to go and try and win that game, and they were always going to come out with a lot of intent to try and get that win, given their position in the table. They needed 3 points. So, yeah, I kind of got what I expected from them. They've got some tidy players. I'm sure we'll get into that in a while. They've got some tidy players. They're a decent enough side. They're a good enough side that you can't do what Moyes did and get away with it. They're doing okay domestically. They're second in the table. After 10 games, they've got a good record. They've lost twice in their 10 games. I think 1 draw. So they've won 7 of their 10. So they're doing quite well domestically. So they're no mugs. They've got a lot of European experience as well. They're perennial kind of European campaigners. So they are a limited side, but but they're not a bad team. Like I say, if you don't go out, with a strong side and perform really well, then there is every chance, particularly in Athens, that they'll beat you. But having said that, I mean, you could see, even with the lineup we put out, and even as bad as we played, you could see that they are a limited side. And to be completely honest, I think David Moyes just played into their hands. He got it completely wrong, in my opinion.
I completely concur. Just for you guys watching at home, either live or later, I'll draw your attention to the ticker along the bottom. It's going to come up intermittently with a few little facts about the two combatants in the game that will unfold tomorrow evening at London Stadium. So just keep your eyes out for that. Okay, so that's the first question, Tom, that we've got out of the way. Your thoughts on Olympiacos as a whole. Let's narrow it down and ask sort of like, again, on the basis of what you witnessed in that previous game, was there any standout players that really sort of made you go, oh, now he looks a little bit tasty. We're going to have to watch out for him when we play them at London Stadium?
Yeah, there were a couple. Well, the first one didn't surprise me because we're all familiar with him from his time at Wolves, and that was Daniel Piraeus, who we know is a very good footballer. To be honest, I feel like Piraeus is actually maybe a level above Olympiacos. I'm surprised he's playing in the Greek league. I think he's got a bit more about him, Piraeus, than that. And I'm surprised, that he's not playing for a better side, if I'm honest. He's a very good footballer, Piraeus. I always thought he was really good when I saw him with Wolves. Really lively player. So even before we played them, he was the one player that I knew, okay, we're going to have to keep an eye on Piraeus. Because he can cause us problems, and that proved to be the case. Really quality player, Daniel Piraeus. Fortunis, I thought, looked really good on the night as well. I thought he looked a very tidy player. I was quite impressed with him. He caused us problems. He's quite direct. And we didn't handle him as well as we could or should have, unfortunately. But yeah, he looked very tidy. And the guy's name escapes me. I think he was playing out on the wing. I can't remember.
Was that Rodney?
Yeah, I can't remember to pronounce his name, but he looked a really tidy player as well. He was causing us problems down that wing, and the three of those really were the ones that were causing pretty much all of the problems. I thought defensively they were okay, but unfortunately we didn't really ask too many questions of them until far too late in the game. And when we did, they did look a bit shaky. Looked like we could get at them. But we just, unfortunately, didn't ask nearly enough questions of them. But yeah, those are the three players I think that really kind of stood out for me. And certainly when it comes to the game on Thursday night, I think, again, those are going to be the three players that we're going to have to try and keep them as quiet as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. Right. Okay, so now this is always a little bit of a difficult question, I feel, because it's sort of like you're never quite sure on a European night how David Moyes is going to approach it. And I believe he's got a much, much bigger game as far as his immediate future, quite frankly, is concerned on Sunday. But let's try and sort of work it out between us. What would be your starting 11 for the game tomorrow?
Okay, my starting 11. I'd be playing 4-3-3. Fabianski in goal. I think the roles have reversed from last season. Areola is the number one keeper now, and he'll play the Premier League games. But Fabianski is still a good goalkeeper, and I would trust him between the sticks, no problem. Back four, I would play Sofala right back because, well, we have to, essentially, and Emerson at left back. I'm a big fan of Emerson. I think he's a really good footballer. I really like him. So again, he's basically a shoo-in at left back. At centre back, I think I would play Mavropanos, and I would throw a little spanner in the works because I don't think Zuma's ready, from what I've been hearing. So with that in mind, I'd play Kehrer alongside Mavropanos. I think at some point, Aguerd has got to get the chop, and I think a message needs to be sent to Aguerd that you can't keep playing like this and get away with it, even if Zuma's out. I think Tilo isn't utilised enough, and when he is, he's utilised in the wrong place, which is at right back. He's not a right back, in my opinion, even though I know Germany have employed him there sometimes. But to me, he just never looks really comfortable there. But I trust Kerr a lot more at centre back. And in fact, if you remember when he first joined the club, he was kind of thrown in there when Moyes hadn't intended to, when after Aguerd picked up that bad injury, upper eye drops in pre-season, and Kerr was thrown in straight away at the start of the season. I thought he did a really good job
I agree.
early on there at centre back in that position. So I'd actually put him in there alongside Mavropanos, because I think Aguerd has got to learn that you just can't keep making those mistakes and keep playing, keep starting. I think he needs to be dropped. And I would trust Kerr in that position. Do you want me to go through the whole 11?
Yeah, go for it.
Midfield three, I would go absolutely as strong as possible. So I would have. How am I going to do it? Yeah, I would have definitely, obviously, Alvarez coming back in, playing as the lone defensive midfielder. I don't think we're home to Olympiacos. We don't need two DMs in there. So
I completely agree.
One number 6 in Alvarez, he's more than capable of doing the job in there against this lot. And then just ahead of him, in a 2, I would have Paqueta and James Ward-Prowse. And then the front 3, I would have Kudus on the right, Antonio up top, Bowen up top. I wouldn't play Antonio in this. I just don't like Antonio's form at the moment. He just feels to me like a player who's hit the wall, if I'm honest. So I'd have Kudus on the right with Bowen up top, and I'd play Cornet on the left. Okay. I know Cornet doesn't get much of a look in under Moyes. I don't exactly know why. I still, to this day, don't think Cornet has been given a proper chance to prove himself in the team. He's never gotten a run of games. He comes off the bench every once in a while. I mean, it's so bad that David Moyes brought Fornells on the left-hand side, against Brentford instead of Cornet. I don't know what the hell's going on there. I still think there's a player there. I still remember Cornet previously, particularly at Burnley. He had a great season in the team that got relegated. Goals and assists. He's got skill and he's got pace to burn. And I would like to see Cornet get an opportunity on the left-hand side of that midfield, because I don't like seeing Paqueta out there, even though I know Paqueta can do a job out there because he's such a brilliant footballer. You can probably put him anywhere and he'll look good. But he's at his best centrally, Paqueta, as we saw against Olympiacos with that goal he scored. Absolute screamer of a goal, brilliant goal in the first leg against Olympiacos. And but I don't want to see him out there. I'd love to see Cornet given a chance out on that left-hand side. I'd put an arm around him and say, look, you're going to get a chance to nail down that left wing position, because Benny isn't really doing a whole lot, in my opinion. His end product always lets him down. Fornells just can't play out there in that position. It's not his natural position. He's unsuited to it. And Paqueta, I think, is wasted out there, even though he still plays well. We'll get a lot more out of Paqueta, in my opinion, in midfield, in central midfield. So I would have Cornet out there. Yeah, I want to see him get a chance to nail down that position. I still think there's a real player there in Maxwell Cornet.
Okay, well, not bad. I've got to say. I think for me, just to go through it, I agree with your goalkeeper. I think that's pretty much a given, providing he's fit. He obviously missed the last European game due to a knock, but he was obviously back in the squad for the Brentford game, so I believe he'll be okay for tomorrow. As far as the back line is concerned, I think I would go formation wise. I would pick a personnel that I think would be able to, during the game, be able to morph formation wise from this to this to this quite readily. And I think that you need to have that in football, depending upon the situation. In game, you're going to be tested in different ways, and you can't be so rigid and not able to flex sort of thing when when you're tested in different ways. So I think I would look to go with a back four from left to right of Emerson. Do you know what? I think your back four works for me. I think we need to see Kehrer at centre back. I mean, you're right. When he came in, he was getting rave reviews. People forget this. He made the odd rick here and there, but is sort of like his general play. I mean, he was getting 7s, 8s out of 10, no problem. So yeah, I'd like to see him at centre back. I think you sort of like you're onto something there. Alvarez as the sort of like the anchor in midfield, no problem. The two central midfielders, JWP and Paquetá, I completely concur there. Possibly where I might deviate from your 11, and like I say, this is my 11. It's not necessarily what I believe David Moyes will himself pick. I have to stress this. But I would like to see a front two consisting of Divin Mubama and Jared Bowen, and just behind them, I'd like to see Mohamed Kudus just literally getting a free roll. Go and float, go left, go right, go deep if you want, spin in behind, cause maximum chaos, throw grenades around, cause shit. And that, I think that personnel could morph from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-4-2 diamond, 4-4-2 flat, all sorts of different formations. Those guys, that 11 could move around and cause all sorts of chaos if they wanted to. Will David Moyes pick it? No, of course not, because there's a youngster involved, so he ain't fucking doing that, is he? Let's be completely honest.
No.
But I'd like to see it. I think that team excites me, Tom.
Yeah, like I said, because we're at home to Olympiacos, and if we're going to go strong, then I think we can just beat this lot anyway, to be honest. They're a limited side, and with our kind of best 11 essentially on the pitch, then yeah, I think we shouldn't have too much trouble with them. And I think they will probably try to play more on the counter in this leg, because they got the 3 points in the last one. They may feel like if they can get a point here, they're still in the mix, because they know that we will clash with because they're going to have Topola in the next game, you know, and we'll have Freiburg, so they know something in that game will have to give as well. And if they can get a draw at our place and beat Topola, that they'll feel like they will probably be in good shape at that point ahead of the final game. So yeah, I think they'll be a little cager and try to hit us in the counter. So I think we can put players out there. We could absolutely go 2 up top. I would be absolutely fine with that team and that formation. I would have no issue with it whatsoever. So yeah, like I said, obviously we know he's probably not going to do that, Moyes, but
No.
yeah, but Suchek's going to play, isn't he? Basically,
Of course he is.
Yeah,
of course he is, and probably Antonio as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get to what we think Moyes is going to do, but but yeah, I'd be happy with that. Absolutely, yeah. There's no problem there at all. I think that team beats them, no problem. And it would be actually absolutely lovely to see Mubama maybe get 90 minutes in the game. He needs it. He deserves it.
Yeah, and do you know what? I'm just going to get this out there. I'm on a WhatsApp group with my brother and a number of others, and someone made the point this morning that it might have even been my brother Ben, but someone turned around and made the point that there's this sort of narrative that's being spun, wherefrom I'm not entirely certain. I have my suspicions that Divin Mubama has something of a poor attitude or whatever. And yet he played the other night for the 21s. Now, the point was made in the group. Well, if he's got a shit attitude, surely a player who's been involved in the first team squad and is then being told you've got to drop down to a youth grade team would very likely turn around to the manager and go, bollocks, I ain't doing that. So the fact that he's done it doesn't really spell out a bad attitude as far as I'm concerned, or am I missing something?
No, it doesn't to me either. And I think there's a little bit of spin going on here, because you know as the weeks go by and the games go by, and Mubama is being overlooked for a completely ineffective Danny Ings, more and more questions are being asked. And this sounds like a little bit of spin to me to justify David Moyes not using him whatsoever. To say, oh, attitude isn't right and all this. I recall, I think the exact same thing has been done before. You know, I've heard this before. It was, who was it? Who was the other striker we had, youngster, where we brought him on at Man United and then took him back off?
Oh, Mipo Odebeko.
Odebeko. That was the same thing we were getting out of the club a couple of seasons ago about Odebeko. Was, oh, why isn't he getting more game time? He looks at it, oh, attitude's not right. So I don't know. This seems like a little bit of spin to me, and I'm not buying it personally. Now, it's not like I have any insider knowledge on this or anything. I'm not on the training ground, but from everything I've seen, I don't believe there's some kind of attitude problem. If he has an attitude problem, it might be because he's not fucking getting any game time when he was told he would be part of the team this season, that he would get minutes. I'd be pissed off as well. I don't think that if that's what it is, that's not an attitude problem. That's an absolutely justified kind of rankle that a player has that he's been fucking lied to. And make no mistake, he was lied to by David Moyes. He wanted to go out on loan for the season so he could play first team football, get a season's experience under his belt, whether it was in Championship or League One. And then Moyes refused to let him go out on loan because he said he intended to use him and that he would get some decent game time this season, and he was going to be a kind of important member of the first team squad. In the meantime, he's sitting on the bench watching a completely ineffective and useless Danny Ings coming on time after time after time. You know, even when Moyes goes fucking two up top, he puts Ings in there.
That's what we're saying, Mark.
And if I'm Mubama, I'm going to have a bit of a fucking attitude at this point too. But I'm saying, what are you doing this to me for? I wanted to go out on loan. You wouldn't let me go out because you said you were planning on using me, and I would get game time this season. And here I am sitting on the bench behind fucking Danny Ings, who hasn't scored and he never scores. Yeah. Ever. He comes on, he's completely ineffective, time after time after time. And still it hasn't gotten to the point where Moyes will say, okay, Divin, you're up. You know, I'd be pissed off as well. So if that's what they're talking about, him having an attitude problem, that ain't an attitude problem. Moyes has a fucking attitude problem towards Mubama, in my opinion.
I agree. Completely agree, mate. Couldn't agree more. It's like I say, I said this in a video that I did yesterday, went out this morning. You know, all this bullshit that's coming out about, not going to play him because he's got a bad attitude. Well, why was he on the fucking bench against Brentford? If he's that bad, you surely wouldn't involve him in the squad, let alone sort of like having him on the bench. You know what I mean? But if he's, if he's pissed off and sort of like because he's not getting played, like I say, that's the reason he's not signing a contract, Mr. Moyes. It's because I believe you've lied to him, or if you've not lied to him, you've just been very sort of like you've been very economical with the truth. I don't know, but
it's on record. It's on record.
Yeah,
like Mubama was told that he would not go out on loan because Moyes intended to use him in the first team this season, and that he would get minutes and would get a chance. And that, to me, so far, is a straight up lie.
Yeah, I agree.
He's gotten fucking absolutely almost nothing, like just paltry amount.
Yeah, I mean,
look, I'd understand if like Ings was coming on and being effective and scoring some goals and stuff, but when game after game after game, Ings is completely ineffective and not scoring any goals whatsoever, not even getting a sniff of a goal. It's at some point it's like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like to me, there's some kind of weird agenda going on here that I don't understand.
I just wonder if it's got something to do with.
It's like Danny Ings was a gift. to David Moyes. This was one of his Sullivan specials, right? Oh, here's Danny Ings. Here's a gift for you. Just arrives at the fucking training ground, and Moyes is like, what? And he's on 125k a week.
Yeah.
Is that fucking hell? What? And it's like, now it's like Moyes feels like, because this is essentially Sullivan's player, that he said, and he's on 125k a week. Maybe he's thinking, fuck me, maybe I better use him a bit. If
he's obligated to use him.
5k a week, maybe there's a bit of pressure there for him to, use him a bit. If he's getting 125k a week, he maybe doesn't want Sullivan to think that he's blanking the player that was gifted to him because he was gifted to him and didn't ask for him. If that's the case, it's just a fucking sad state of affairs all around.
I'll just before we move on to this, the next point, just want to reference this one. Mark, as far as I'm concerned, he's 18 years of age.
Yeah,
he's capable of playing 2 games in 3 days.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, probably in reality, the best he's going to get is probably 2 minutes off the bench, if that. He'll probably just be there getting splinters in his arse.
I think the fans have kind of reached a breaking point on this. I think if it comes down to it, if Moyes takes off, say, whoever's up top or whatever, let's say if he starts Antonio and Antonio has to come off, 65, 70 minutes, and Ings comes on instead of Mubama, I think you're going to hear it in the crowd. I think you're going to get boos in the crowd if he does it again at home to Olympiacos, especially if we're in a comfortable position. If we're a couple of goals to the good, looking comfortable, and Mubama doesn't come on and Ings is sprung off the bench again, I think that's when the crowd are going to make their feelings known about the way Mubama is being treated.
I actually think it might be worse against Forest, and I'll tell you the reason why I think that. I'm hearing stories that there's not been a great take-up as far as the home seats are concerned. What concerns me with that, and I've seen it happen, I saw it in the FCSB game, which was the first game of the group stage of the Conference League. There was a lot of Romanian fans in the West Ham end. Now, there's quite a big Greek contingent in London. So
Stelios is going to be in the away end.
You may say that. I could not possibly comment. No, I'm sure he wouldn't. I'm sure he's got no divided loyalties from Stel. No chance at all. Evening, John. Hope you're well.
If you're watching Stel, apologise. It was just a joke. He's going to be on his show now.
He'll coat you off. Yeah, he'll call you rude words. So right. So assuming your 11 plays, Tom. Assuming your 11 plays, or okay, maybe even assuming your 11 doesn't play, and the 11 that you probably suspect in your heart of hearts is what Moyes is going to go with. Who's the West Ham player that is the absolute key component to us getting 3 points tomorrow?
There's more than one, but if I have to choose a single player, well said, Happy. Absolutely true.
Poor Stel.
He's getting it from all angles now, I think. If I have to choose one key player, I'm going to say Kudus.
Yeah, I'm going to say him or Bowen, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the two. Yeah, that I'm thinking of, but they're both in magnificent form. I'm going to say Kudus though. I think at home, I believe Moyes will play him on the right hand side with Bowen up top. That's what I'm expecting. So I do think Kudus will play, and I think he'll get on a lot of ball. And he's just such a live wire. He's so direct, so skillful, and has an eye for goal, has an eye for a pass. I think Kudus will cause them all sorts of problems tomorrow night. And I think he's the one player. I think that if they're going to have nightmares tonight, I think Kudus is maybe the one player that will give them nightmares.
Okay, yeah, that's a good assessment. Right, I'm just going to, hang on, press the wrong button. Right, okay. I'm just going to get some team news out before we come on to the final piece of this particular preview, if I may, Tom. So just to give anybody at home a little bit of team news regarding Olympiacos. So in the corresponding fixture we played in Greece, there was a player called Andreas Toy who missed that fixture because he was sent off against TSC back at Topola. He is available for the game at the London Stadium tomorrow. So they've obviously going to be bolstered by that. But they do have a long injury list to contend with. A lot of them are players who, I'll be brutally honest, because they're Greek pronunciations, I'm probably going to struggle with a lot of them, if I'm being honest. So let's just say there's a lot of players that I can't pronounce that probably aren't going to be featured tomorrow. So that's that one out the way. One name that I can pronounce, and is a name that might be familiar to some of you guys. He used to play for Nottingham Forest, and in fact, he actually still is a Nottingham Forest player. He's out there on loan. He's a gentleman by the name of Omar Richards. But he's not going to feature by the looks of things. He's not even yet made his debut for Olympiacos, as it turns out. So it's unlikely he'll be involved tomorrow. And Julian Biancone, he is also someone that's going to be unlikely to be involved because for the same reason he's not played any football. So I think it's unlikely he's going to be chucked in such an important fixture for them. But that's pretty much Olympiacos. Probably a lot of it will be the same players that you saw in the first leg, I suspect. As I say, it will be Rodney that will be. He's the one that really impressed me, sort of bombing down the right wing. He was obviously the guy that played the ball in that Ogbonna got completely in a muddle over, and it wasn't a great goal to concede. It looked aesthetically, it looked piss poor, if I'm being honest. But there you go. But the final question that I have to ask you, Tom, not that one. Press the wrong button again. What's your score prediction? What are you thinking?
Yeah, look, Moyes is going to go strong tomorrow. It's going to be a very strong first 11 at home, under the lights. I can only see a West Ham win in this one, if I'm honest. Olympiacos, as I said, are a decent side, but still a limited side and shouldn't be able to match us whatsoever in this game. So I think we will win the game. I do believe it will be relatively comfortable on the night. Maybe not for the entire night. We won't necessarily, race into a lead or anything. But I think over the 90 minutes we'll have too much for them. So I do think it'll be a comfortable win for us. Having said that, I'm never confident of us keeping a clean sheet because we just don't do it. We give up a goal somewhere. So my prediction is at half time, I think we'll be 1-0 up. And then I think we'll win the second half 2-1. So I think the 3-1 win to West Ham on the night, relatively comfortable and 3 points in the bag. And hopefully then, obviously we'll be top of the group still. Be hoping that Topola could do something unexpected. Do us some kind of a favour and maybe nick a draw or something from Freiburg. Unlikely, but you never know in football. But I think a 3-1 relatively comfortable evening.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 as well, but I'm going to go a slightly different sequencing. I think we go 2-0 up in the first half. I think we get to half time with a 2-goal cushion, and we probably concede a goal within 10 minutes of the interval because that's usually how things have gone this season.
They've got to stop. They've got to stop drinking Bovril at halftime. For fuck's sake.
I don't know what's going on, Tom. I mean, it's really, and I said this in one of the comments I put on the video I posted out earlier on the channel. I believe David Moyes is a bit of a charlatan in that he's got this reputation of being a defensive manager. We can't fucking defend. So what's going on?
Yeah. We I think we just defend so much. I think it's you're asking your defensive players to be kind of almost flawless for 90 minutes, and it's very hard when you're allowing your opponents to have that much of the ball, to get that many crosses in, to get that many balls into the box, to play that many passes in your final third. It's hard to concentrate for that long and to defend that much and I think it's almost inevitable. At some point, someone will make an error. Now, it appears that Aguerd is a bit more error prone than most in that type of defense. I think, Zuma is kind of more suited to that kind of defending than Aguerd is, and you see that Zuma will kind of clear balls all night long and make interceptions and get blocks in. But Aguerd, I think, is a bit more uncomfortable when he's constantly having to defend, and if we're under the caution, there's lots of balls coming in. He does seem to lose concentration more and get a little bit more nervy in the backs to the wall type defending that we unfortunately have to do more often than not. So I just don't think he's suited to that. And so mistakes will happen inevitably when you invite that many kind of balls to be played into your final third.
I think that, and I've said this a couple of times, I think Nayef Aguerd is the right piece of the jigsaw in the wrong box, in that I think that he is he's a defender that his key attribute is recovery pace, and he's playing in a team that employs a low block, as it's now termed in modern football, sitting deep in old money, whatever. So therefore, that weapon of recovery pace is significantly blunted, because if you're sitting that further back, recovery pace really isn't that big a deal, sort of thing, because you've got less space to cover. If he was in a Manchester City or a Liverpool or an Arsenal, a team that is sort of like probably 10, 15, 20 yards further up the pitch, now that's a hell of a weapon that you've got there at your disposal.
Yeah, I know what Happy's saying. It's counterintuitive, but some defenders are not suited to those dogged defensive performances. So some centre backs thrive on it. They love having everything out in front of them. Yeah, you can cross the ball as often as you like. You can try and take your shots. We'll get our blocks in. Like Craig Dawson was brilliant at backs to the wall defending.
Yes.
Zuma is good at the backs to the wall defending. Oggy, when he was in his prime, was really good at the backs to the wall defending. But there are other players who are not so suited to that stuff. Even at times, if you remember, when you'd see Liverpool, when they were not in good form, and teams were getting at them, even Van Dijk, was struggling. His form dipped. He started making errors, because Van Dijk is another one of those defenders who's better when you play a high line, and you're not having to defend backs to the wall all the time. Van Dijk makes lots of mistakes whenever Liverpool find themselves in a situation like that. And Aguerd is one of those types of defenders as well. Some are suited to it and some are not. And Aguerd is more suited to the Liverpool style of the high line. He would do better in that kind of system and would look better, and obviously would make less mistakes, because he's not having to kind of head balls out of the box all the time, or defend crosses all the time, block shots all the time, intercept through balls all the time. So he's just more error prone, as is Van Dijk. They're just the same type of defender. Whereas Craig Dawson will do that all night long, no problem. He thrives on it.
I'm gonna throw this last question at you, Tom, and it's not one of the ones that I normally ask, but I think it's quite relevant to where we're at the moment. If David Moyes loses this game, is it really critical in terms of his immediate future, or is it all hinging on the Nottingham Forest game on Sunday?
It's difficult to know for certain. It's hard to know what's in the mind of the board members. But certainly it would have an impact. I mean, it wouldn't go unnoticed. Let's put it that way. If we were to have another really bad performance on the back of that Brentford one, I think that would absolutely have an effect. It definitely wouldn't help his cause whatsoever. If we get turned over at home by Olympiacos, I mean, I think that would be another nail in the coffin. I really do. I don't think he can get away with that. If we were in generally good form, and we're had beaten them out in Athens, that could be put down to, okay, we had a bad night, it happens, whatever. But I think given that is already under some pressure. And given that we lost out in Athens, that we need to bounce back here with a win. We need these 3 points to try and finish top of the group, or at least in the top 2 to go through. I do think a bad performance and a loss tomorrow would absolutely be damaging.
Final thoughts before you knock it on the head, Tom. The floor is yours.
Yeah, look, just ultimately everything right now is about tomorrow. We'll worry about Forest, on Friday morning. For now, it's all about tomorrow night. He has to and will, I believe, go very strong with his first 11. It's a must-win game because it's very likely Freiburg will beat Topola. So we've got to win this. So if he can put out, a strong 11, as he will, and we can get a decent performance and a win, then I think we'll be back on track in the group, and it's vitally important that we do so. And I believe we will. I do believe we'll win the game. I do believe, even if it's not a brilliant performance, I think it will be a decent enough performance, and that's probably all we need to beat them is a good performance. So I think we'll be all right tomorrow. I think we'll be absolutely fine. Anything less than that, and again, as I say, it keeps the foot on Moyes' neck, as it were.
Absolutely.
But I'm confident. Ultimately, I'm confident that we'll get the job done tomorrow.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Right, guys, thanks for joining us. As always, I'd like to wish you to please don't forget to like, comment on, and share this stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the bell icon for alerts of new content. Please don't forget to click all as well. And we thank you very much indeed for your support in this matter. And I'd also like to thank you for stepping into the breach lastminute.com, Tommy.
No problem. I'm always happy to help out if I'm free to. Thanks for asking me on.
No problem at all. And for you guys that have watched, as I say, don't forget to share us to your social media platforms. Tell your friends about us. And don't forget to join us for the Olympiacos review, which will be coming on the Friday. Excuse me. I'm losing track of days. There you go. Please don't also forget to give your full support to the Iron Supporting Food Banks charity. We'll catch you next time. Come on, you Irons. Stay safe. The West Ham Massive are pleased to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham fans and friends inspired by the work of other football food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations for a Newham food bank in Beckton, who supplies 7 distribution centres in the borough 7 days a week and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thanks for your support. Come on, you Irons.